It's Tuesday in South Carolina. Welcome to the Touchdowns podcast presented by Harrison Williamson Cross Country Mortgage. We are the Dugas brothers. He is Thomas. I am Beck. Welcome into this episode. We want to give a special shout out to everyone out there. We've crossed the 100 subscriber threshold on YouTube. So we appreciate everyone who listens, watches, and subscribes. If you're listening right now, please go subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you choose to listen or watch this podcast. We appreciate everyone who chooses to tune in. We've had a lot of fun with this podcast this season and hope to continue growing and building it, and appreciate all of the listeners and people who interact, leave us comments, and it's great to see that we have 100 subscribers on YouTube, and we want to just keep going to 200 and beyond. So thank you so much for everyone out there. Let's jump into the episode, Thomas. Just some quick notes on the transfer portal. We had Wes Mitchell from Gamecocks Central last episode, really to talk about the finalization of this transfer portal class. Since Sunday, had a couple guys that had been lingering in the portal, I guess, and have chosen to commit and sign with us. Can you talk about those guys a little bit? Also, we didn't mention on Sunday about Dez Umanzolu, if I pronounce his name right. He transferred out to Alabama. So that's an impact position of edge where we're losing some depth. So just speak a little bit to that, and then we're going to talk national championship from last night.
Yeah, so we have signed another offensive tackle and a tight end since we spoke the portal class with Wes. And Wes said something that I hadn't really thought of before he said it that is really an interesting take, in my opinion, because there is so much movement these days with the portal that, some of these takes that, we're taking and other teams are taking are not even necessarily guys that are expected to start right away or even maybe ever play, but they are necessary for having a proper scout team, or, in the same way that an NFL team has a practice squad. You do need a certain amount of offensive line bodies on your roster to run practice in an appropriate way. So that is something that is kind of a perspective I hadn't thought of until Wes brought that up. So that'll be interesting to kind of have that in the back of our minds now as we continue to take players this class and in the future. But yeah, I'm excited to see what this class can be. I think we've addressed all of our needs at this point. If anything, I would like us to take another corner or safety if a good one presents themselves. But other than that, just take the best available and see what happens. As far as Dez leaving, I hope we didn't mismanage that situation. Gamecock fans are well aware that we don't have a great track record of success when we play against former players. In my lifetime and your lifetime, dating back to Kenny Irons, so anytime
Kenny Irons, damn, that's a fool.
And anytime that we lose a guy and he's on the schedule next year, it does make me a little uncomfortable. But hopefully it doesn't come back to bite us too hard. But that's pretty much all I got for the portal news.
Yeah, I don't know what it was with Dez. And to your point, hopefully it wasn't a mismanaged situation, but we've talked about it. The portal giveth and the portal Portal taketh away. Shout out to the Cajun Cousins. But that's what it is. That's the game. That's the game these days, and we just have to ultimately make the most of what we can. In the rules and confines of. We've spoken extensively about how we feel about the current state. Obviously, I want a little bit more change than you, but ultimately, the game is the game, and we have to play it as is. So, speaking of teams that played the game as is and have succeeded, Indiana wins the national championship last night. They took down Miami 27-21. Ross flashed the stat up there. This has been something, Thomas, you've been talking about since our very first episode, really, around the changes in college football and what it can do for specifically programs like South Carolina who don't have historical success and how the landscape's changed. And now this is mind-blowing to see what Indiana has done, the numbers that have been and stats that I've been seeing. They beat 6 top 10 teams this season. They had beaten 6 top 10 teams their entire program's existence before this season. 3 bowl wins in their entire existence, and 3 bowl wins this year. All of these things, obviously 16-0, the first team to ever do that. All of these things, and we're going to get to that, but let's talk about the game specifically, because I thought it was a great game. Indiana had dominated their first 2 playoff games against Oregon and Alabama. So they obviously looked like a wagon going in. They were 8.5-point favorites, and I think the line ended up at 7.5. But Miami, on the other hand, had to play an extra game. They had to go on the road. They beat A&M. They beat Ohio State, and then beat Ole Miss. So a gauntlet that they ran through as well, and looked great. And I thought this was a really good game. Indiana in the first half seemed to dominate on third down, and that's what kind of held Miami in check. They couldn't sustain a drive because they couldn't execute on third down. And really, Indiana's only touchdown drive was aided by a third down. They had 3rd and 13. They get an offsides penalty on Miami to get it to 3rd and 8, and they hit a nice little draw to the running back for about a 25-yard gain that kind of got them momentum because they really couldn't do much offensively. And then it flipped where Miami started moving the ball in the second half. They hit the big play with Fletcher, and Indiana wasn't doing anything offensively. Miami was dominating up front. Bain and Mesdor and those guys were really giving them fits. And then it just came down to, and I was saying it last night, Indiana is just that team. They just made the plays when they had to. I mean, the blocked punt to give them a touchdown when really the game was tightening up and they could get no offense. And Malachi Toney fields that punt, and apparently there was a trick play set up for that punt return. They had a guy on the other side of the field, and Malachi Toney was going to throw it across the field to him, and he didn't have the chance to because the punt was, they were expecting the punt to be caught at the 20-yard line, and instead went all the way back to the 5. And that's why I think he fielded it instead of letting it go in the end zone, because he was still trying to, in his mind, set up that trick play. Credit to whoever on Twitter spotted that I saw. But ultimately they get stopped and they get the blocked punt, and it's like such a timely play in the game where Indiana couldn't do anything offensively. But then Miami comes right back with a touchdown, a great answer. But then that's where Mendoza kind of took over, and they made those 2 4th-down conversions. And obviously the play that will live on forever is him running into the end zone on the 4th and 5, diving, taking hits. And then, Carson Beck, his career ended how I think everyone thought it might, with him throwing a pick, and that's been the story of his career. But overall, I thought it was an awesome game. I thought Indiana was just that team that they made all the plays at the right time. You almost could argue Miami was more dominant up front on both sides of the line of scrimmage. I didn't love Miami's first half offensive game plan. I think there was a couple possessions in a row where they just dropped back Carson Beck 3 times and 3 incompletions and punt. I'm like, you got Fletcher he wasn't before his breakout run. I mean, he wasn't doing 5, 6, 7 yards of carry. I mean, he was struggling. They were struggling to run it a bit, but I thought they should have stayed more committed to the run in the first half to try and churn some first downs, and they just couldn't get a first down, and then they finally get a drive and they miss the field goal, and so special teams ultimately, with the missed field goal from Miami at the end of the half and the blocked punt touchdown for Indiana ultimately proved to maybe be the difference in the game, because it felt like Miami's offense and defense played better, but then those two special teams plays made the difference. But what were your thoughts? I thought it was a great game, a great end to the season, and Indiana is the undefeated champs.
Yeah, it was a great game. Little slow in the first half, but competitive all the way through. I think it kind of really puts to bed the notion that 12 teams is too many, because Miami was the 10 seed, but they were really the last team in. They were the team that was the most on the chopping block to be left out of the field, and then they go on a run and they give Indiana the best challenge that they faced in the playoffs. So, it was nice that you and I were on the, we both had Miami plus 8.5, and that hit. So maybe we're not cursed. We just we haven't been good this year, and we'll be better for the listeners next year. But yeah, I mean, I was rooting for Indiana to win. We've touched on it several times, but now that it's actually been done and all the stories are coming out, right before we shot, you, Ross, and I were, sent a tweet into, the podcast group chat of an Indiana season ticket holder who has had tickets for, he can't remember how many years because he's like 90 years old, but he's been a season ticket holder for 60 plus years, and they're just interviewing him after the game. And that's awesome. I mean, you made the joke, and I tweeted it, that's going to be you in 2077, at the Elon Musk Bowl on Mars, when we play in our natty. But I do think it signals a shift in college sports. Blue bloods have had a stranglehold on football for our entire lifetime. The last time there was a first-time champion was Florida in 1996. I was 4 years old. You were 3. So really, in our stream of consciousness, all the teams that have won are prior champions. And not only had Indiana not won a national championship, they were a historically bottom tier program. I think before Cignetti got there, they had the most losses, or the second most losses in Division I college football history. No trophy case, tradition, anything to speak of. And, all of a sudden they're 27-2 in the last 2 years. And I know that you think that they've caught lightning in a bottle and that they're going to miss the playoff next year. I personally think that Indiana is the new Alabama. I think when Saban retired, a lot of people assumed that Georgia and Kirby would be the next dynasty. And I'm not saying that Georgia is done or that Kirby won't continue to have a really good career as a coach and is not a great coach. I think he is that. And then maybe some people thought that, Dan Lanning was going to be in the mix. I'm out on Dan Lanning, by the way. He lost me midway through the third quarter of the Indiana game. I think he's a scrub. But, they everyone picked the wrong Saban disciple. It's Cignetti. And, I think that to think that they have done what they've done without him really having high school recruiting cranked up. I mean, Indiana busted the blue chip ratio last night. They in addition to being the first team to win a national championship for the first time in 30 years, they are the first team ever to win a national championship with less than a 50% blue chip ratio, which means, 4 and 5 star high school players on their roster. And not only is it less than 50, it was 8%. So, from a roster talent perspective, although I think that, Cignetti is obviously part of why he is a great coach is he's better at identifying talented football players than 247 is. And that's something that Nick Saban kind of spoke to in College Game Day's coverage of the national championship, basically saying, Coach Saban basically said, yeah, we didn't look at star ratings. Why do we care how those guys rate a player? They're not coaches. Like, basically Nick is saying, like, I know what a good football player is more than they do. Yeah. And so, but all that being said, the blue chip ratio was a thing that held true for many, many years. But for all these reasons, like, I'm happy for Indiana fans. I'm hopeful for South Carolina fans. It's exciting. Like, it does feel like anybody from anywhere can do it. And I'd be lying if I also didn't add that I'm very jealous of, I mean, you're an Indiana fan. I saw the pictures of his first game on Twitter. It was clearly a fan base that didn't have any expectations. They weren't expecting much. And, here we are, they're waking up 18 months later and they've only lost 2 games in the last 2 seasons. And they just
and this is no disrespect to Indiana fans, because I know there's a lot of them, especially that guy that we saw on Twitter that had been a football season ticket holder since 1959. Yeah, biggest alumni base in the country. I'm not going to disrespect all of them, just some of them, because I'm going to say this. There was a lot of goings around of how deserving this fan base is, and I can think of a more deserving fan base, and it's South Carolina, and there's probably a few others, but just South Carolina as one that's more deserving. I mean, Indiana is a basketball school. They care about basketball more than football. You referenced the first game that Cignetti coached in 2024, and there was 2,000 people in the stands. I mean, I get it. Y'all have sucked for a long time, and there is fans out there that have been through thick and thin with the Indiana football program. But, you're a basketball school first, and I don't think the Indiana fan base has been. Of course, you're all going to jump. We all, South Carolina, when we were making the Final Four run in basketball, everyone was going nuts. That maybe didn't care about basketball as much, and you jump on the wave because it's fun as shit, and I get that completely. But as far as deserving, they definitely do deserve it. They went 16-0, magical season. But I'm just coming from a South Carolina fan who football is our number one thing. We're a football school. We have a putrid history, so not as bad as Indiana's, but it's pretty piss poor, and we're still.
It used to not be as bad as Indiana's. They've unfortunately jumped us now.
Well, yeah, fair enough. But yeah, I just think there is some more deserving fan bases out there that need to see a run like this. But props to the. I mean, this was a crazy season for Indiana. I mean, and you have to have those moments that you can't go through a season without having some of these moments. But just looking back at it, like the Iowa game, Mendoza throws the pick with 3 minutes left. It's a tie game. Indiana has the ball. Mendoza throws the pick. Iowa takes it back to like the Indiana 30-yard line with 3 minutes left. All they have to do is get one first down, and they can run the clock down all the way, kick the field goal to win the game. Indiana gets a 3-and-out. Iowa misses the field goal. Indiana gets the ball back, and they hit a 50-yard slant route on 3rd and 10 to win the game. Like, crazy result that could have gone either way. I mean, the Penn State game, that catch that Omar Cooper made was, to me, the play of the year, just from the way he contorted his body to get a foot down on that play. And I think that was a 3rd or 4th down in that game, do or die play. He had to come up with it. And like, they just made some crazy plays. And then you look at last night, I'm sitting there, I'm like, all right, maybe Miami can pull this off. And they just made, it was just the back shoulder, and they just made these plays, and it was a truly a magical season. And I'm, like I said, I'm no disrespect to the Indiana fans, y'all do deserve it. I just think there's more deserving fan bases out there that are starving for success, mainly me and Gamecock Nation. But to Thomas's point, Indiana's it's kind of flipped college football on its head. It's like who's going to be, or there's not going to be blue bloods in the sense of every year we're watching the same teams in the playoff. I think there's going to be a little bit more parity. Like I said, it's my hot take of 2026 so far, but I don't think Indiana is going to make it back. I think the blue chip ratio thing is real, but also I would love to see statistics on how many national championship teams before Indiana had an average age of 23 years old. Like I said, the game is the game, and they played the game the best. But I don't think they're going to be able to continue with how they're doing things now. To me, I know Signetti's a boss, and all he does is back up the shit he says. And he's talking about don't even mention NIL. Like, we didn't even have a lot of money thrown around this team. We're going to get more investment. But I just think it's going to be hard to duplicate what they did this year. Like, with everything that went right, that had to go right. The Iowa game, the Penn State game, the Big Ten championship. Ohio State missed a short field goal. this championship game against Miami. They made all the right plays, and Miami didn't, and that's going to be credit to them. But that's what's hard, though, is you have this magical season, and can you duplicate it? I also think their schedule is a little bit tougher next year in the regular season than it's been the past couple years. They play Ohio State, they play at Michigan, they play Southern Cal, they play at Washington. So a little bit harder, harder schedule. Mendoza is gone. They're losing a left tackle that's going to play in the NFL. I think they're losing some guys on defense that are going to play in the NFL. Signetti seemed to think that I think he was quoted like, we don't have 8 guys that will play on the NFL on this roster. I think they probably do. They have the number 1 overall pick at quarterback. I think both of their running backs could see the NFL. The left tackle is going to go to the NFL. They got, linebacker, that safety and corner, some of the D line. So I think they're better than he was giving them credit for. And I know he pulled a lot of his JMU guys with him that he had scouted and developed. And clearly those guys could play big boy ball and got overlooked. But it's just it's going to be hard to duplicate the success of this year, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, I'm not sitting here declaring that they're going to go 16-0 again, but I do think they're going to make the field. Also, I just want to take a second to shout out Becker, number 80. I thought of him when you mentioned the back shoulder pass, and that, I mean, apparently he hasn't had a drop all season. He is like 13 for 16 on 50-50 balls. And, he was making plays like that against Alabama as well. He was a fun player that I hadn't seen play because I don't really watch Indiana football. I was tuned into the end of the Penn State game. Obviously, he did not make the game-winning catch in that game, but seeing him play on this playoff run has been fun to watch, and he's an excellent
player. What's crazy is he didn't even see the field till like week 8.
And I would imagine that he has a good chance of making an NFL roster if he can run well. Just because he doesn't drop it. I mean, he 0 drops. I mean, and it doesn't matter if he can't get open because if it's contested, he still catches it too. So shout out Becker. I had fun watching you in the playoff run. But yeah, I mean, I think that the age of Indiana will be touched on a lot when this team is talked about and looked back on and compared to, other great college football teams. But, my answer to that is everybody else had the opportunity to, recruit or sign transfer portal guys that were older if they wanted to. There are 6th and 7th year players littered and sprinkled throughout college football everywhere. And we had Luke Doty on our roster this year. He was a COVID 7-year guy or 6-year guy, and now all the COVID year guys are done. I think you will still continue to see JUCO guys, fight for extra years of eligibility if they start playing well enough to make some serious money at the D1 level. They're going to try and get another year out of it to earn that money, like you saw Diego Pavia do. But that's still, a 5th or 6th year at most. You're not going to see any more 7-year guys. So I think the average age in college football is finally going to get back down to normal. So, yeah, I mean, he's not going to be able to recreate the team that he had this year, but I think that once he is able to start signing top 100 players out of high school and develop those guys and coach those guys for 3 years, and I think that he's a stud, and I think that Indiana will be a powerhouse as long as he is there. But
I mean, do you even think he will have that strategy of signing and developing guys out of
absolutely,
high school?
I think that, obviously in year one, it made a lot of sense for him to bring all the JMU players with him. And, then in year two, he still has that core on the team of JMU players, and then he supplements that with the portal. But I don't think that he's going to adopt the Florida State model where he continues to try and just completely fill his roster via the portal, because, I'll put it to you this way. Is there anyone in the portal that is as good as Dylan Stewart at defensive end, in your opinion?
No.
And I would agree with you. In my opinion, no matter how much money you have, you can't get an edge as good as Dylan is in the portal. So the cream of the crop elite talent, the best way to get those guys is still to sign them out of high school and retain them. So for that reason, I do believe that he's going to use high school recruiting as a roster building tool now that he has the platform that he has.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the 247. They're currently ranked 34. They have 22 commits. This is high school only. 7 4-stars, 15 3-stars for their class. Interesting.
That's the 2026 class.
Yeah, that's this incoming class.
Do they have any 2027 guys?
Let's look at 2027.
Because I'll say this too. Like, obviously they had a good year last year, but recruiting is kind of done 2 and 3 years ahead of time. So they're not going to really see the true bump from this season, in my opinion, until the 2028 high school class.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like college football programs get on these guys in 9th and 10th grade, and like they start developing that rapport and that relationship with them 2 or 3 years ahead of time. So I'm not saying that can't be overcome or undone, but the natty bump isn't going to be showing up in this year's high school class. You're gonna start to see it in the 2027 class, and then really, in my opinion, in the 2028 class.
Yeah. Right now they got four commits in 2027. A couple 4-stars and a couple 3-stars. I don't know, man. It's interesting. I can't get over how awesome their season was, and it comes from a place of envy and jealousy.
I'm so jealous.
And it's so sick what they accomplished, and it truly is a amazing story for college football and sports in general. So I don't want to sound like I'm raining on the parade, but I just think they're gonna get slapped in the face next year with a little bit of a reality check. I still think they're gonna be good. I just think those 50-50 games they might lose next year as opposed to winning, and I could see them going 8-4, 9-3. It'll be interesting to see if I might have to if it's still a 12-team playoff, I won't rescind my take that they won't make it. But if it gets moved to 16 teams, I might have to. I think they could get it. I think they're going to be right there. I think they're going to be 15th, 16th in the country next year. And I just think with the games they have on their schedule in the regular season, they're going to be tested more next year than they were this year and last year. And also, they just won the national championship. They're going to have a huge target on their back. They're no longer the underdog, fun story. They're the head honcho. So people, when you win, people are circling the Indiana game. It was so funny. Some Ohio State fan tweeted about Indiana, like, get used to Big Noon Kickoff, buddy, because basically Big Noon Kickoff just broadcasts every Ohio State game.
Yeah.
And now Indiana's the head honcho, and so all of their big home games now are going to be stuck to Big Noon Kickoff, which I think pisses off all the Ohio State, Michigan, Big Ten people that desperately beg for prime time big games, and they can never get them because Fox Big Noon Kickoff always snags it up. But I thought that was a funny little comment from an Ohio State fan on Twitter.
I think there is something to be said about them becoming, the team that has the target on their back instead of the underdog. But again, like the way that Cignetti, his whole deal is like results oriented, or like systems oriented, like block out the noise. Like he is really like a Saban clone, and like I don't really see any of that kind of stuff.
Well, dude, they didn't even fumble this whole entire season. They fumbled in the opening game, and then they didn't even fumble the rest of the season. Like this, I can't even fathom how magical the season was from them.
Right, but maybe the magic just is that like they perfected fundamental football. I mean, if you
that's what happens with. I mean, you have 23 and 24-year-olds playing. They're less inclined to make mistakes than 18 and 19-year-olds.
I'm telling you, it's the notion that just because they're a little bit older, it makes them impervious to making mistakes. I think it has everything to do with, he obviously has a gift for evaluating players, both their physical and mental capabilities. So he's good at picking just players that can perform, and then they clearly have a great whatever they do in practice, whatever they do in film, like whatever their systems are in place that they have to perform at a high level, they work.
Yeah, no, credit where credit's due. I just the old roster thing is what is convincing me that they're going to take a step back.
Bro, the people in the NFL that are 26 fumble. I like that. This age notion. I don't know why you're fixating on it. Like,
because it makes a huge difference.
It helps.
I think it's just as relevant to the conversation as the blue chip ratio.
But if I'm playing devil's advocate, I'm going to again state that everybody in college football had access to the same age pool.
No, I'm not saying they did anything wrong by it. I'm just saying when you have a roster full of 23 and 24-year-olds and 22-year-olds,
so you're saying
it is an advantage over rosters that are younger. That's all I'm saying. Just similar to rosters that are more talented, that is an advantage over rosters that are less talented.
Okay.
Older roster and just the average age of their roster is like 23 years old. That is a distinct advantage.
I will allow that, but what I will say is what they will lose in age and experience, I believe they will be able to backfill with more talent.
Correct. And what I'm saying is they can get more talent, and it'll be interesting to see what he gets out of those talented players as opposed to the overlooked, smart. I'm just saying it's going to be a very interesting dynamic because I think as their talent increases, their results might decrease, which is a weird thing to say. But I just think they were one of the least penalized teams in the country. They didn't fumble the entire season. I mean, Mendoza threw a few picks, but like he was the Heisman winner at quarterback. I'm not sure this Josh Hoover kid from TCU is going to be what Mendoza was. So there's just a lot of factors that I think play into it.
What was Mendoza last year at Cal? Like, clearly whatever they did for him or with him elevated his level of play back. That's what I'm trying to tell you. He's the guy. He has a system.
They put him around a bunch of grown men, and
he wasn't using 25-year-olds at JMU. I mean, this age thing, like, what is it with you, dude?
Hey, I'm just saying. We'll see how it plays out next year. It's going to be a great. I mean, this is just it's a sad day because college football is officially over. We have no more games to watch for this season. Reflecting back on this season, obviously it sucked for South Carolina. We have to be better next year or it's going to be pain. But I think we are going to be better next year. This is not Kool-Aid sipping. This is just standard operating procedure for Beck Dugas. I've already placed my national championship bet on South Carolina for next season. No Kool-Aid, just standard operating procedure out there, folks. So I think we're 100-1. Indiana was 100-1 going into this year.
I actually can't believe our odds are that good.
I mean, Indiana's were the same. I'm seeing some synergy.
They were coming off of a season where they were in the field the previous season, and we're coming off a 4-8 season. And our odds are the same as Indiana's were. I just find that line intriguing. I figured you could have got better odds than that. But I'm still on hiatus. I think I'm going to remain on hiatus for quite some time. I will still give out picks next season, but I just want to be transparent with the fans. I don't plan on putting money on any games for the foreseeable future. I finished 39, 46, and 1. And the only thing good about that is that it's better than Beck.
I was 35, 49, and 2. Ugly season full of bad beats. I think, I think I'll do better next year. This was it was a humbling season. I didn't do as well as Thomas, which sucked. Next year, maybe we'll up the stakes and have something fun to coincide with our picks and make it a challenge or maybe see what we could do. Maybe something interactive with the listeners. I don't know. We'll figure something out. We got a whole off season, but yeah, the season has officially ended. Portal season's over. We're going to get into spring practice. And I think from this podcast perspective, we're going to keep talking, obviously, current state of Gamecock football. I think this spring we'll have a lot of time to do some more, I'll call it, I don't know, more storytelling episodes, or, episodes driven by, content around favorite games, toughest losses, coolest venues we visited, just stories about growing up Gamecock fans, growing up, um, going to games, and so we'll hopefully, and then obviously we're going to be talking basketball. We're going to talk some baseball as well, and hoping to get, we're going to try and have more and more guests on in the off season, just to be able to bring fresh perspectives and fresh conversation into the podcast. So don't take the college football season ending as a sign that we are going to let up. We're still going to be pushing out episodes, and so hopefully they can get you through the off season, because as college football fans, we all know the longest season is the off season, and those summer nights get hot and long, and as we await another season of college football. So really looking forward to what we're gonna have on the docket for spring, and bringing in some people, bringing in some friends, bringing in some different guests. We have some folks in mind already that we're going to be reaching out to, and it's going to be an exciting off season. And like I said, a lot of storytelling, and hopefully some entertainment value for all of those that are missing college football as it officially concluded last night. Let's talk Courtcocks. We just got done. We're recording this Tuesday night. We played Oklahoma in Columbia tonight earlier and got the dub. A great win. I was able to watch bits and pieces of it as I was cooking dinner and eating dinner. The team needed a win. I feel like I've put the nail in the coffin to the program, and then we beat LSU on the road, and I'm like, okay, take the nail out, stay in the coffin, but take the nail out, and then we just get obliterated and embarrassed by Arkansas. We lose to Auburn, and it's like, all right, I'm going to start putting the nail back in, and we win tonight. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of wins in SEC play, so I'm going to enjoy a win when we get one, especially for the home fans that made it out to Colonial Life. I'm glad we were able to win. Oklahoma is at the bottom of the SEC with us. I think I saw a power rankings that had us 16th and Oklahoma 15th. So maybe now we're flip flopped and we're 15th, but win's a win. And I think, Ross, did you say all 5 starters were in double figures? I know. Okay, awesome. All 5 starters in double figures. I know I saw at the beginning of the game, Elijah Strong went on an 11-0 run himself. He continues to be, I think, my favorite player just because he's hilarious. He's like a microwave, and he does these things where he just goes unconscious and then seems to fade away into the game, and he's a great watch, and Michi played well. Eli Ellis was hurt and was out. I do think it helps when Eli Ellis is healthy, because we need a second ball handler when Michi goes to the bench. I think that's a lot of our struggles are due to we don't really have a playmaker outside of Michi. And when he goes to the bench, the offense stagnates. But good win against Oklahoma. It's a home win, so I'm glad all the people that were in Columbia and went out to the game got to witness a victory. So, we have someone on Saturday. I know we play Florida next week at home at Texas A&M on Saturday. So that'll be our next game at Texas A&M. That's a 3:30 tip-off on Saturday. So It's looking like it's going to be a snowpocalypse, at least in Greenville. It is. We're going to get snow and ice, so maybe bundle up and watch some Gamecock basketball on Saturday. Any thoughts, T?
I was unable to watch the game. I actually, the reason I'm all, dressed up.
Swabbed out.
Dad is in town for the real estate commission, and so I met him at he's staying at the Cambria and the Vista, and we had a burger before the podcast. But I did see something. I want to say the stat was we haven't had a player average 5 assists since Talon Cooper. I don't know if that's correct. I think I'm remembering that correctly. But, in addition to just that team, just overall being Lamont's best team that he's had since he's been in Columbia, I think a huge part of that is because we had just a stud point guard / ball distributor in Talon. And I think that we have really missed having a player like him since he's left. Just, it made me think of that stat when you were talking about Eli being banged up and not having another ball handler behind Michi. I think if Lamont is going to have success here, we're going to have to find a way to have more consistent point guard play, because it seems that, the things that we want to do, or like he wants to do on offense, really only work if you have a great point guard, which that's true for most things. But I think in particular, we are a lot more point guard driven than other teams.
Yeah. A lot of opportunity upcoming. I'm just looking at the schedule at A&M. I think that should be a quad one game. I mean, we're hosting Florida on Wednesday. It's quad one. Yeah. We host Florida. Then we have LSU. We already beat them on the road. We have to go to Florida later in the year. We get Kentucky. We get 3 straight home games to end the SEC slate: Mississippi State, Kentucky, Tennessee. We'll see. Like I said, I'm not getting my hopes too high, just based on the way we've played. But who knows? We might catch fire. But glad the team got a home win tonight for Gamecock Nation and the fans that turned out. That's going to be a wrap. Appreciate everyone listening. As always, go to our YouTube channel. Please subscribe. Thank you for 100 subscribers. Go follow us on socials: Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We appreciate everyone who listens, watches, interacts, leave comments. We love it all. So looking forward to continuing on. And we're, like I mentioned earlier, we are going to continue pumping out episodes. We'll have different types of content to come in the spring. Obviously, still touching on current events with Gamecock football, basketball, and baseball, but also we might have to branch out and look for more types of content to discuss on the pod as we get into kind of the dead of the off season. But thank you everyone for listening and or watching. As always, go Cox.
Go Cox.